Good morning. We are live. I should say we today because it's just me. Will has a new schedule with the airlines, and hopefully we'll be back at some point this month. Dr. Fuller, who is always an amazing stand-in for my Monday morning shows with Will, is feeling under the weather this morning. So you got your old pal Rich Brown, and I got a pretty interesting show for you. We're going to talk about two topics. I know I normally kind of talk about one topic. Um, this morning, we're going to talk about two. And while I'm waiting for folks to jump on, let me tell you about some opportunities that may be available to you. One, we just got finished with our high risk environment course here at the farm in Tennessee. We discussed everything from tactical medicine, the law of self defense, how you can run afoul of it, and how you cannot. We also talked about weapons retention. We did 2 days defensive handgun with Mr. Mike Siegler, including a eh, a very uncomfortable night of low light shooting in the rain. I was trying to think how to phrase that correctly, but it was cold, pouring down rain, and a lot of the students were like, "I've never done anything like that before." I said, "Well, you're in good company because most Americans have never fired for an hour or so at night in the rain." And it was an interesting time. We also covered OC spray. We did some lock defeat, lock picking, and we just had an overall really good time. So if you could join us next year, I'm working on a couple of different possibilities for. I like to have a theme for our Warrior Weeks. Next year, I'm looking at a couple different things. Maybe bringing back a Black Site Operators course. So BSOC may get a go next year. I'm looking at an armed executives course for a potential theme for next year. Looking at another theme for like a parental guardian, because one of the things a lot of people pointed out when we did the vehicle CQB class was, yeah, that's not me. I'm not rolling around with four dudes and plate carriers, man. It's more like me and my grandkid, or me and my two daughters, and one of them's in a car seat. So what does protecting your family look like in a vehicle like that? So if any of those sounds good, or maybe you've got another thought, send it to rich@AmericanWarriorSociety.com. I'd love to hear it, what you guys would be interested in. Will Rhodes is us. Good morning, Rich. Coin number 2269. If you've been hearing about this coin number stuff for a while and still not sure what it's all about, click the links in today's show notes and take a test drive. Got Alan Kelly on. He is coin number 1571 from Triple Occupied, Virginia. Alan and I were talking over or texting or emailing over the weekend. This is a lesson for all of us, brother, because Davidson County here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm wearing the Nashville Predators hoodie this morning. Big fan. It would be easy for them to kind of take over, just like they did in Virginia. So you got a red state that's bullied by just a few, counties up there, and I think Tennessee could see that as well. And I'm very fearful of that. Ask the people in Illinois. Ask the people in New York. Lots of great, amazing people out there in the rural areas of Illinois and the rural areas of New York that don't adhere to the leftist ideologies that are being pushed down their throat. So it's going to be interesting to see what the future looks like for those places. Will Rhodes is in Missouri. Guile is on for the Philippines. Good morning. Alan says, if it ain't raining, you ain't training. Brother, that was the motto in the Marine Corps, man. They were quick to remind us that we were amphibians. Ted is on from Mississippi. Good morning, Ted. Bruce is on. Says, good morning, Rich. Just got me this morning, guys. Dr. Fuller is under the weather, and JD Helly is on. Let's go ahead and jump into today's show. It's kind of an interesting one. I want to talk about two completely disparate topics. One is what's going on in Venezuela, and one is the Muslim immigration situation and how that is a real cancerous pill. The first one I want to talk to you about, the shooting actually happened back in April of this year. I think the body cam footage came out in May. This is some excerpts from the New York Post did. Jamal Wally was a man who fatally shot two Fairfax County, Virginia police officers in April of 2025 before being killed by a third officer. He was stopped for an expired inspection sticker When the incident occurred, he drew his gun and fired a single shot, hitting two officers. Now, look at this. He was a military veteran who had worked as a translator for U.S. forces in Afghanistan, which is what we're seeing with the other one I'm going to be discussing here in a moment. Look at this man's kit. He's got a Glock. The officer's grabbing at it. It's got a light on it. Look at, he's got two magazines on his belt and some other kit on his belt. I mean, this guy was ready to go. What's interesting, if you watch the entirety of this video, he's saying, I should have served with the effing Taliban right before killing the two cops. Now, what I want you to think about here is watch the 8-minute video. I will put it up there as soon as we get off the show today. I will post the video of this shooting. At the time, I was kind of thinking it was a one-off. I remember when the video came out, it was unbelievable what he was saying. How just pissed off he was about being in America and how he couldn't get a job and just, felt lonely and isolated, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of thought it was a one-off. And then I saw, the killing of the National Guardsman over the weekend in Washington, D.C. And of course, there's another guardsman that is horrifically wounded, and we'll be praying for him and his family. This is not a one-off, man. So this guy feels like, hey, I served your freaking country. I'm over here. You guys keep bugging me about these inspection stickers and driver's licenses and all. You got to understand something, man. These people come from a small Afghan village. There's no driver's license over there. There's no inspection stickers. What are you talking about? These are Western concepts that these people that come from these places cannot grasp. They didn't grow up in our society. They don't have birth certificates. So when it's like, oh, we vetted them, how'd you vet them? What documents did you use? What documents did you use? I mean, let me call myself out. I'm named after my grandfather, Ralph Brown. Ralph Brown did not have a birth certificate until the 60s when he was in his late 40s. And he had to go down to the state of Tennessee and submit the old family Bible. Hey, I was born in a log cabin in Roane County, Tennessee. Here's the family Bible where somebody scrawled it down and there's blood stains on it from where my mother squeezed me into this world. And I mean, in some ways, these feudal clannish societies like here in the Appalachians are somewhat akin to the way they're still living over there, very feudal. So when he's getting harassed for these documents, it doesn't make sense to him. Like, look, is there something wrong with the way I'm driving? What are you talking about? Inspection stickers. I'll put it up there. It's really interesting to watch these cultures clash violently. Tough stuff, man. Kyle says, I used to love Illinois, but through the years, I realized there are problems, especially gun rights. Well, you ain't wrong about that. Matt is on. Good morning, Matt. Glad to have you on out there in Tulsa. Mark is on from Australia, and we have another Mark, our international Mark duo. Mark is on from Ontario, Canada. Please like and hit that share button, guys. I'm not going to let you down this morning. I know I'm running solo, but pretty pumped up about this stuff. So Jamal Wally, I'll put the gunfight up there for you later. But I'm more than the gunfight. I want you to hear the frustration in this man's voice before he starts shooting police officers. He's like, I got 4 kids, and it's pretty rough. Let's talk about this guy here. I can't even begin to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. I'm in East Tennessee, and I didn't grow up around Muslim people and their naming convention. So this Amani, let's call him that, 41 years old, was shot Friday morning after threatening several people with a large kitchen knife. He was shot in the stomach and leg and died at the hospital. Amani was a former Afghani interpreter for U.S. Special Forces who had been shot several times during more than 5 years of service and had been struggling. So he'd been shot multiple times in Afghanistan helping our folks out. He's standing, I think, in front of an MRAP in that photo. But if you go back to, I think this may have happened in 2024, where he was killed by San Francisco police officers. But in 2019, he had slashed a city park ranger with a box cutter and appeared to be in an altered mental state. What was he still doing walking the streets, guys? This man is having some significant issues and probably need to be in some long-term care. He may have been a brave guy. Obviously, he probably was. He was an interpreter for our American Special Forces in Afghanistan, shot multiple times, and you could say in service to this flag or in service to his own country, depends on what his motivation was. But obviously, he come over here was suffering from some of the same stuff that Wally was suffering from, who had also been a translator for U.S. forces in Afghanistan. And then we go to this latest killer, um, Lockenwall, worked for the CIA for over a decade in Afghanistan before the U.S. military withdrew from the country. And this is a guy, man, pretty shadowy fella here. If you look here at his stuff, some part of some sort of CIA strike force. Here's his credentials. Gave him a rank as an E5. There's his blood type, A pos. I mean, again, I go back to how are we vetting them? Now, if we're vetting them on the sense of their service to us while in Afghanistan, um, were they mercenaries? How do you know if they were ideologically in line with what we were doing? Yeah, I agree with this gentleman here. Project 1868, 2019 should still be in prison for attempted murder of a peace officer. I couldn't agree with you more, sir. Absolutely couldn't agree with you more. So these are three cases right here: Amani, Lakawal, and of course Wally. Uh, And they are three examples of I think 190 something thousand Afghanis that have been brought into this country. And look, again, it's the poison M&M thing, guys. I know you've heard me talk about it before. This is, I'm sure there's 190,000 of them that are going to be fine Americans. But if there's 5,000 radicals out of the 195,000, that's 5,000 too many. And how do we know which one's which? And this guy right here allegedly was radicalized while in the United States, is what we're being told by DHS over the weekend. Please like and hit that share button. Again, if 195,000 M&Ms in a big yummy bowl, but 5,000 of those M&Ms are poison, are you going to take a chance? Statistically, you're probably safe, but are you going to let your kids eat that bowl? Because that's what we're doing, guys. We're letting these people in long term, and they're going to be here, and they're going to be being raised around your kids and your grandkids. So we need to figure this out quick. I think the 47th administration did the right thing by freezing all immigrations and looking at them with a real jaundiced eye. Same thing with the Somalis in Dearborn. They are not assimilating. They can't assimilate. Same kind of situation where their culture that they grew up in is not it's not in line with our Western values. They don't understand these things. I'll use my own family. My great grandfather Burt Brown never had a driver's license. It wasn't like the cops in Roane County wasn't trying to. They'd pull him over every opportunity they get. And I'm told that my great grandfather Burt Brown would say, um, "I'd say, Bert, just go down there." He was illiterate, but hey, we're going to take care of you. You've been driving, since vehicles were in existence. We'll give you a driver's license. And he'd say, "Is it going to make me drive any better?" Well, no. Okay, then why would I get one? Just couldn't understand it. And this is, Appalachian American folks. So imagine you're raised in an Afghani village or a Somali village, and you come over here, and somebody's going to pay you to sit on your ass. What do you think you're going to do? I'll tell you what they do, because I've talked about this before. With the construction company that I run, I have tried to hire immigrants, and I've hired a few from sub-Saharan Africa, Burundi specifically. And once they do the math, or somebody helps them do the math, that, oh, by the way, you can make more money sitting at home doing nothing, they don't want to work anymore. I remember trying to hire an Iraqi truck driver. And here's the way it works, guys. I go over there to the 501c3. I won't say the name of them because I don't know if they want to be affiliated with us. And I say, hey, these are the kind of skills I'm looking for. Do you have any refugees that kind of meet this? Because I want to kind of shepherd them to our way of life and be there for them. And then so, yeah, hey, Rich, we got one. So I'll go over there and interview them. And I will pay them definitely as much, if not in some cases, I will offer them more money than I do our Americans, just to try to get them, assimilated to our culture, kind of our way. And they're like, I just can't work for that, man. I can make more money sitting at home doing nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, then you understand the calculus here in America, don't you? Okay, well, good luck. and they just become a net drain. So we got to remove those incentives, guys, because people respond to incentives. It's as simple as that. Cruise is on September 5, AWS up there in beautiful Rhode Island, coin number 1928. Then we have these three again. Not all of these Afghani immigrants are coming in here and doing terrible things, but a few are. You got the Albuquerque murders in 2022, where an Afghani refugee, Mohammed Saeed, was convicted of murder in a case that shocked Albuquerque's Muslim community, including the killings of several Muslim men. I still couldn't find the motive for that one. I tried to look into it. I never could kind of ascertain what that was about. Terrorism-related cases. Two Afghani nationals pleaded guilty in 2024 to involvement in a plot to obtain firearms for a potential terrorist attack. Another individual was arrested in Texas in late 2025 for threatening to bomb a building. Sexual assault and domestic violence in 2021. Two Afghani refugees were indicted on federal charges related to a child sex and spousal assault at a temporary housing facility on a military base. Domestic violence cases have been noted as a challenge due to cultural differences in the trauma experienced with refugees. There's a cultural difference. Muhammad says that they can beat their wives. Here in America, we say we're not going to tolerate that, and they don't understand that. Alan says these individuals all could be lone wolves or part of a terrorist cells ready to be activated, cause chaos, and that's what terrifies me, Alan. You're absolutely right. It's not just is this a one-off, but who are they and what they're doing, and we have no idea. We truly don't until they pop up on the radar. And what if they don't pop up on the radar? What if they leave no digital signature that NSA can track? And these conversations being had one to another or inside a mosque that have yet to be infiltrated by our intelligence community, FBI, etc. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about relative to Afghani immigrants. Now I want to kind of look at this other thing that's going on, this Venezuela so-called Cartel del Sol, which I think it means like a cartel of the sun or something like that. So this is one of those. This is allegedly, according to the Department of Justice, the Venezuela regime that is in charge of this cartel. We'll see, man. I don't know, but a few examples of how they have kind of put together the fact that the Venezuelan military and political arms really have their hands involved in this. And that is, you could go back all the way back to 2013 when members of the Venezuelan National Guard smuggled 31 suitcases containing 1.3 tons of cocaine into the airport in Paris Charles de Gaulle, the largest seizure of cocaine ever in mainland France. And again, those were members of the Venezuelan National Guard. Not to be outdone, a few months later, the commander of the Venezuelan National Guard was arrested while driving to Valencia with his family with 554 kilos of cocaine in his possession. That must have been a big vehicle to house that much. My brother Jeff says Afghan national from Operation Allies welcome arrested, charged for threatening to bomb Texas City. Just happened this weekend. Yeah, I mean, and that's another example of exactly what I was talking about. I mean, what are we doing, guys? What the hell are we doing? This is not how we safeguard the homeland. This is a bad decision. And as much as my heart goes out for some of these guys that fought alongside of us bravely, I mean, they were well paid and well compensated. Now it's time for you to stay with your families in Afghanistan. That's your way of life. That's your culture, and you need to embrace it. Thank you for coming out and helping us out. Because again, it's not like they were doing it for free, folks. Where they were handsomely paid for their service to their country. November the 11th, 2015, DEA agents in Haiti arrested two relatives, an adopted son and a nephew of the First Lady of Venezuela, as they attempted to move 800 kilos of cocaine. So, First Lady of Venezuela. There you go. First Lady of Venezuela. So, when Trump came out over the weekend and said, no flights over Venezuela, this is how the world responded. And of course, Newsweek was quick to point out, quote, Trump does not have the legal authority to close the airspace over another country. However, his announcement seems to still be having a noticeable impact. You think? According to Flight Tracker, there's all but just a very, very few that are still flying into Caracas. And to be clear, that's where most of the country lives. Southern Venezuela is nobody's there. So Most flights that were going into Caracas have stopped, and unless it's a local Venezuela airline, they're staying the hell out of the sky. Now, of course, they could be turning their transponders off. The only reason we see these flights is because they got the transponders on. But it's highly likely that some of them that are still there are still flying. They just turn the transponders off so they can move around. Alan says, "Is our intelligence agency staying on point or sleeping behind the wheel?" I will tell you, most of the people that watch the show know we do a lot of training with the federal law enforcement in the New York City area, and talking to those guys, they are insanely busy. They're developing sources. I mean, of course, they won't get in the weeds of it, but yeah, they're doing everything they can, man. I really truly believe that. But the problem is there's only so many agents and so much time, and the State Department and immigrations need to turn this off. And if that takes executive decisions, and that's what it takes. All right, Venezuela at a glance. It's about roughly the size of Texas. Venezuela is. You could take a look here and see where it is relative to Florida, Cuba, the Caribbean, Panama. And then you can see where the population centers are, where the population density is. It's, of course, just as I said, up above the Orinoco River. Total population about 28.4 million, GDP 108 billion, life expectancy 23 years. Of course, they're Christian, Spanish. And as I said earlier, about the size of Texas. There's a GDP and over time. What's interesting about this is really it just floats with oil. Whatever oil's doing is going to tell you what the Venezuelan GDP is, because in 2024, oil export revenues and taxes paid by the state-owned oil company PDVSA were estimated to make up about 58% of the state's income. Who is the second largest trading partner, according to everything I could find this morning? Accounting for about 10% of total exports, half of which were petroleum coke, because Venezuela's oil, they have a lot of it. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but really it's kind of a low grade oil. It's a petroleum coke that has to be highly enriched to get it there where we can use it. Is what China's buying. Spain and Venezuela's third largest trading partner in 2025, accounting for about 9%. But who's the biggest trading partner? It's your old pal, United States of America, about 50%. 50% of all exports are going into Uncle Sam's bank here. So you got China, Spain, and Brazil as number 4, and basically everybody else is kind of a lower down the pike. So a lot of people don't know. Your old pal Rich Brown, I'd heard that it was the case where Venezuela was home to the largest oil reserves, estimated to be about 303 billion barrels of oil. So this is interesting here. I mean, they have a ton of it. It's far below other major exporters, including Saudi Arabia. See, they got a lot, but they're not exporting much. So, and again, like I said, it's concentrated primarily in the Orinoco Belt. The vast region of the eastern part of the country stretches approximately 21,000 square miles. Extra heavy crude oil, which is highly viscous and dense, making it much harder and more expensive to extract than conventional crude. Takes some really advanced techniques such as steam injection and blending to get it light enough and make it marketable. Did someone say oil? Looks like you need some freedom. And this is where we're at here. Tony says delayed start. Missed the notification. Good morning, Tony. Yeah, I was running behind this morning. Dr. Fuller his health is not good. He's kind of feeling under the weather. It's been going around, man. I had it last weekend. My bride had it this weekend, so it's definitely going around. Ted says USA #1 on drugs. Yeah, we probably are, pal. No doubt about it. It's a freaking epidemic. I don't know why we don't fix the problem here, and then the problem can go away. But I guess it's easier to kill a drug boat. People piloting drug boats. So this is worldwide proven crude oil reserves. As of 2023, global proven oil reserves stand at approximately 1.7 trillion barrels, with Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Canada accounting for more than half of the total. And look at that. And I think it's silly that most Americans don't want to hear this. That yeah, we fight for oil. There's no question about it. It keeps us from fighting over rocks in the streets. We have to have oil. It is a sad fact of 2025. I wish we were energy independent. I think this should have been something that the United States focused on after 9/11. We've had 24 years to fix this problem, and we have chosen not to because we got to protect. Here in Tennessee, when I was growing up, the snail darter, some small fish that is in our creeks, was a big deal, and everybody was afraid to displace the snail darters, and kids could die in the street as long as the snail darters were safe, and it just made no sense to me then, and it makes no sense to me now. In Camp Lejeune, we couldn't do some training so that we could protect our country because of owls that were in some pine trees. It's like, guys, relocate the freaking owls so we can train. I don't know what to tell you. We need to get this oil so we can tell the rest of the world to kiss our rear end. As long as we're reliant on foreign sources of oil, then this is always going to be a freaking problem, and we're going to have to go around the world giving people freedom until we sort it out. And I know that sounds crude, but this just is what it is. Guy says must be the weather causing the health issues. Not sure what's going on, buddy. Tony is on. Says good morning from Rhode Island. Don says good morning from Northwest Montana. That's the drugs. My son almost gone last week in the hood on crack binge. Safe now. Can hit anyone. Yeah, I've talked about it before. I haven't gone into details over it, but my youngest son was too young to remember when my sister died of drugs, and so yeah, over the weekend he wanted to talk about it, and we sat around the fire, and I explained to him all the grim details on it. So yeah, it is hit. There's no family I know that is not that isn't being affected by this. So I got a first cousin that's in prison right now for robbing convenience stores to fuel a drug habit. This is real. This is America. Um, so I don't know what we do it. I don't know what we do about it, but we got to do something. It's killing Americans at an alarming rate. Nobody wants to talk about it. But all this stuff going on in Venezuela has led to a refugee crisis, man. And of course, as Maduro has continued to tighten his grip on power and eroding the democratic institutions through censorship, restricted internet access, and persecution of political opponents, we'll talk about that in just a moment here. Um, we've seen, severe shortages of food, water, fuel, medicine. Half the population still lives in poverty, although the rate has risen since 2021. There's some great documentaries on Venezuela and kind of what they're doing in response to this. One of the things I saw them do was during a lot of their hyperinflation was you could only go shopping. They took whatever like their version of the Social Security card was, and let's say your last number of Social Security card was one, right? Then you could shop on Monday, and there's a uniformed security officer with a firearm that checks everybody's as they come in. Okay, you got a one, you can go. You can go in the store, and then when you make the purchase, they check it again before they ring you up. Now, of course, people find ways around it, and the black market comes in. I mean, people find a way. There's no question about that. But the majority of those have started to leave Venezuela. Yeah, when you have an inflation rate of 180%, then people are going to flee. And guess where they're going? Obviously, they're going to Latin American countries and the Caribbean, but they're also heading their way up here. And we can't have that. Let's see. Alan says my cousin is in and out of jail, meth, and other illicit substances. Man, yeah, and it's tough because you gotta cut him loose. There's no way I'd let my first cousin, if he was out of jail, come anywhere near my house, because guess what kind of people he hangs with? Not a chance. Uh, Mark says there's plenty of oil in Australia. I'll pick you up at the airport. That's hilarious, brother. I love it. Get you guys some freedom as well. Venezuela's military, let's just suffice it to say they're they can't stand toe to toe with America. That not even for a second. Not even for a second, because all this is showing you is just military hardware. Really, it's not military power. The power is stuff that you don't see. Just like Trump saying, "Get out of the skies," and all of a sudden it just disappears. That's power. If Maduro said clear the skies of the United States, what would happen? Not a damn thing. Our cyber capabilities, our SIGINT capabilities, um, are not on display here. But let me tell you something right now. If they want to turn that country off, it wouldn't take but Trump saying the word. So now they're talking about some land incursions, and that's why they're clearing the airspace. It could come at any time, or it could not come. It could just be ice in the kicker, so to speak. Who knows? Causes drug problems all over the world, brother. We are a bit free from that a few years back when, yeah, your president took over. Ooh, he had all the drug pushers and users caught and unalived. And I remember reading some stuff about when the communists came into China, doing something similar. Like, look, if you're a drug user, we're going to give you 90 days to clean your act up. And after that, if we catch you using, we're going to kill you. Now, if you have a problem that's outside your control, you got 90 days to come in, and the state will pay your family whatever your salary was while you're going through treatment. I think this was in the early 20th century. We'll pay your salary while you undergo treatment to get you clean. And if you ever go back, we'll kill you. And they did, man. They brought them out. They put a big placard on them, sentenced to death, put them on their knees, shot them in the back of the head with some sort of hot-powered rifle, and then they charged the family the 38 cents for the bullet to shoot them in the back of the head. But guess what? You clean it up. You want to go? Does anybody listening to me today want to go spit gum on the sidewalks of Singapore? No, because you know you're going to get a caning that will leave you in the hospital. So people respond to incentives. We've said that earlier. Don says, imagine if someone was importing tons of sarin or VX gas, we'd immediately recognize it for what it was, a chemical weapon of mass destruction. If they could kill tens of thousands with drugs, and we treat it as if each death is an individual event. We need to recalibrate our thinking. Yeah, that's an interesting point you raise, and I agree with you. I guess my point here is the market is going to be here, whether we wipe Venezuela off the map or not. And then we're going to have to take on Mexico, and then we're going to take on whatever, and then we're going to have to kill every meth lab up and down this road I live on. I mean, if you go into my garage right now, this is a sad fact, but I'll tell a really, really uncomfortable truth. When my grandparents bought this place, they didn't know what the guy that lived here before did. And somebody broke down the side of the road near my house and like, oh, where you live? I said, oh, the house with the red tin roof. Is like, oh yeah, that guy, I'm gonna say his name. He used to cook meth in your garage. I'm like, what? He says, yeah, yeah. If you go in your garage, right now there's big chunks missing out of the concrete slab, right? I said, yeah, how'd you know? He goes, well, I went in there one day and he was chopping up batteries to get the acid out. He was cooking meth in these big drums in your garage. I'm like, oh my God. So my point is, until we do something about the demand, then we're just going to keep fighting a hydra that every time you chop a head off, it just grows another one. I mean, we got to do something. And I don't know what the answer is. Is it a faith-based initiative? I don't know. Don, Tony, Guile, anybody watching, listening, I don't know what the answer is. And if you do, you can get a Nobel Peace Prize for it, but we got to do something. Because we just can't run around the world, doing this. I guess we can, but eventually we're going to run out of money and what have you. Tony says, when the oligarch convinces you not to talk about politics and religion, we find ourselves swamped with the persecutions of corrupt politicians is Islamism. Yeah. God says natural resources of the PH. Does America want it? Better to the U.S. than to China. Yeah, man. We used to have a really close relationship with the Philippines. And right after Mount Pinatubo blew up, we ended up giving Subic Bay back and pretty much, for the most part, left the Philippines after a close relationship since 1890. U.S. attacks in the Caribbean. So here's kind of some places that the attacks are going down. 21 deadly strikes on vessels off Venezuela's coast in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific Ocean since September the 2nd, making the most intense American military activity in Latin America since the U.S. invasion of Panama in 1989. The strikes concluded under the authority of the U.S. Southern Command have killed at least 83 people according to statements by U.S. President Donald Trump. So how, these were some of these strikes are going down. This is what I find interesting, man. Maria Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader who just got the Nobel Peace Prize, has urged President Trump to help oust the ruler of Venezuela. So this is you have the other reasons why Trump wants to do that, whether it's oil or get rid of the cartels or what have you. But you also have the most recent winner of the Nobel Peace Prize going, please, Mr. Trump, come in here and do something. Now, the Iron Lady of Venezuela is currently in hiding, but I'm sure she's in hiding in the U.S. or under our protection. And we're going to install her just as we kick his ass out of there. And I think Maduro probably is trying to run some back channel deals with Trump to get a good deal, secure his exile, and then he'll roll out. That's what I think. I could be wrong. He could do a Saddam and be like, "No, I'm gonna stay here until y'all put a noose around my neck." And that will ultimately happen. Maduro will be found in a spider hole somewhere outside of Caracas. And because JSOC is really good at manhunting, it's what they do. So that's kind of all the news that's fit to print this morning. Gaza Subic is actually a U.S. base again. I'm gonna have to look into that, man. I'd heard some rumors about that. I know it's being used quite a bit. I don't know if the flag is flying down there and we're paying you guys money for being there, but I'm gonna dig into that, gal. Had a lot of good memories from there. Jay is on from Hawaii. Great to have you on. This is really all I had for you guys, just kind of keeping everybody up to speed on what's going on with Venezuela and some of the Afghan immigrants. If you missed that part of the show, you came in late. Thank you to the 15 folks watching live. You might want to go back and check that out. That was not just a one-off. It's a growing trend. These former Afghanis that worked with our units. We used to call it blowback, by the way, when CIA does shit in other parts of the world, and then, oh, by the way, it creeps its way back here. We used to call it blowback. Now I don't know what they call it now because it's an uncomfortable truism. Allen says gangs, they are the criminal element of organized drug influences, work hand in hand with drug cartels. Also, they involve the most of the deadly violence in our nation. Yeah, worked with Mike and I did a training with the Phoenix Police Department a couple of years back, and I tell you right now, man, they are dealing with the cartels, and in a way that somebody from Tennessee, it just blew my hair back. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. The fight they're doing with the cartels on a daily basis. Same with Las Cruces. We did a training down in Las Cruces a few years ago, and it was the same thing. I just was blown away. And both of those police departments are outstanding, by the way. I mean, fantastic organizations doing God's work. Don says Maduro was trying to cut a deal for amnesty. I'm sure he is. I don't know if amnesty is going to work, but definitely he can get an exile in a country he probably don't want to spend the rest of his life in, only until his car slams into a tree at 100 miles an hour, and nobody can figure out how'd that happen. Weird how cars suddenly just have a mind of their own, asks some journalists that those have happened to. But again, and that's the kind of capabilities that our government has. And so, heard it here first, folks. Thank you to the 13 folks that are still with me, man. I know it's a quick show today. I hope you have a really safe weekend. I got I got a great guest coming up this Friday. Let's see who it is. Let me look this up while I got you guys with me. This Friday's guest at 7:30 is gonna be, it's gonna be Gavin Glasnip. He is a former 160th pilot, the Night Stalkers that flies JSOC around. He is now with Delta Defense, which is United States Concealed Carry Association. Really looking forward to having him on this Friday. We're going to have a real good talk. Kyle says, quick, but good show, brother. I really appreciate it, man. This Venezuela thing could pop at any minute or it could fizzle out. If he makes a deal to go into exile and get some sort of amnesty, and Maria comes in, and then, of course, we'll have advisors on the ground once it becomes a friendly relationship, I'm sure. And we'll hunt down some of these cartel folks and bring them to justice. Bruce says, thanks for keeping us updated, Mr. Rich. Bruce, thank you for being on this morning. Guys and gals out there in Warrior Nation, man. The fight is coming, folks. Say it every week. I want you to be ready.